There are thousands of other UFO documents released through the Freedom of Information Act that clearly show unexplained aerial objects intruding on military bases, damaging nuclear missiles in their silos, outperforming advanced fighters, and withstanding gunfire. It is clear that no matter how many times a public relations officer states that UFOs do not exist, the military and intelligence agencies of the United States government have grave concerns about the subject, and these agencies handle UFO reports with the utmost secrecy and seriousness. Since the 1950s, UFO researchers have speculated about the existence of a military quick reaction team whose job it was to recover fallen alien artifacts. In the 1980s, one such program was uncovered, Project Moondust. In 1982, research by Clifford Stone yielded an Air Force document describing moondust. As you can see, moondust was a program designed to locate, take possession of, and deliver fallen foreign space vehicles, which included man-made objects and objects of unknown origin. The same document also mentions Operation Bluefly, which is clearly the transport team intended to support Project Moondust. The document containing this information has apparently been reclassified as secret and is now no longer available to researchers. However, references to moondust turn up in many State Department telegrams from overseas embassies. Here are summaries of two interesting moondust projects. The competition between the U.S. and Soviet space efforts makes the existence of a team like the moondust team perfectly logical. Yet it's interesting to note that the identification of the objects that fell in the Sudan and in Nepal were classified as secret and remain secret to this day. What could be so secret about space junk after 30 years? Since the passage of the Freedom of Information Act, literally thousands of government documents regarding UFOs have been released, usually after months and sometimes years of courtroom battles. These documents come chiefly from the Air Force and the known intelligence agencies. These documents often refer to still other documents that were not released. The greatest saga of all the document sagas, and the one that sheds the most light on how difficult getting information can be, is the story of the Citizens Against UFO Secrecy versus the National Security Agency. The National Security Agency began operations in 1952. That agency is based at Fort George Meade in Maryland. The NSA has its own college, television station, and power plant. The black-budgeted group's budget was estimated to be $2 billion a year in the 1980s, with no governmental oversight or review. The series of legal battles involved in the cost suit are vitally important in understanding the government's determination to keep the lid shut tight on UFO information. Why? Because throughout the legal battles, the CIA and the NSA repeatedly claimed in court that their files were a matter of highest national security, a direct contradiction to 30 years of government statements. In 1980, the litigation made it into a courtroom ruled by Judge Gerhard Gesell. The NSA presented the judge with a 21-page affidavit marked Top Secret Umbra. The judge reviewed the documents and issued this ruling. When cause won the release, this is an example of what most of it looked like. In the mid-1960s, the U.S. Air Force hired the University of Colorado to conduct a scientific survey of UFOs. The Air Force requested a panel with, quote, the strictest objectivity by investigators who have no predilections or preconceived positions on the UFO question, unquote. The project began on October the 7th, 1966, with Dr. Edward U. Condon as director and Dean Robert Lowe as project coordinator. Objectivity is hardly what the Air Force received. On February the 20th, 1967, members of the committee visited the CIA's National Photographic Center. The text you see here is from a CIA memo dated February the 23rd, 1967. It reveals the CIA's fingers in the project and shows how careful they were about letting the information out. In July of 1967, a member of the study, Dr. David Saunders, discovered a memo written by Robert Lowe in August of 1966 when the project was being initially put together. The Lowe memo ruined the panel's reputation for objectivity, and bickering and infighting began among the members. Lowe's memo was quoted in Look magazine, and the general perception was, and still is, that Condon, the university, and the United States Air Force schemed to produce a report that denied the existence of UFOs. The final report produced by the study is over 1,400 pages in length. The committee listed many cases, such as the Tremonton, Utah film, as identified when they had no real evidence for their views. And even with these cases excluded, the report is littered with mysterious sightings, unexplained events, and unknown objects. In the section labeled Conclusions and Recommendations, Condon wrote the text you see here, an obvious contradiction to much of the evidence included in his report. A scientific study of UFOs was a good idea, but the Condon Committee abandoned the rules of objectivity. They ignored the principles of science, and it was sabotaged by meddling governmental entities. The discovery of intelligent life on other worlds could cause the Earth's civilization to collapse. This warning was contained in a 1961 research report given to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and officially titled Proposed Studies on the Implications of Peaceful Space Activities for Human Affairs. Most people refer to this report by a much simpler name, the Brookings Report. In addition to the warning, the report recommended that the world prepare itself mentally for the inevitable reality of alien contact. I ask you, could this recommendation not be the foundation for the undeniable increase of the alien presence in our movies, television shows, commercials, and in society as a whole? This report was prepared for NASA by the Brookings Institution at a cost of $86,000. And it was submitted to the Space Agency's Committee on Beings in Space Studies. The members of the report team, headed by Donald M. Michael, also recommended further study on other space activities. You see a critical section of text here from the Brookings report here on your screen. The report said discovery of intelligent beings on other planets could lead to an all-out effort by Earth to contact them, or it could lead to sweeping changes here on Earth, or even the wholesale downfall of civilization. The Brookings report suggested that the public not be told if and when intelligent life were discovered. Stan McDaniel, author of the McDaniel Report, says the sections of the Brookings report that reference, quote, implications of a discovery of extraterrestrial life, unquote, are strongly indicated as the source of the 30-year-old NASA policy of covering up the issue of UFOs. And I agree, these reports, the Brookings Report, the Rand Report, and other studies over the years have caused terror within the secret circles of our government, terror at the thought that we might have to pay the price of changes in values, attitudes, and behavior, changes that may affect the present power structure of both government and economies. And that, in my opinion, is one of the chief reasons the UFO matter is still the deepest and darkest of all governmental secrets.